Hello, my loves, and welcome to today's Pregnancy Yoga Flow, where we are focusing on the transition into motherhood. Go ahead and join me on the center of your mat, sitting in Hero's Pose on your feet, or an easy pose if that's more comfortable to you. Go ahead and place your hands on your belly and close your eyes as we take a few deep breaths. This transition into motherhood can be very overwhelming and exciting, so I hope today's practice really helps you ground yourself in this transition as you start to trust your internal guidance and trust your motherly instincts as you take on this new identity as a mother. Go ahead and gently open your eyes, and we're going to start by doing a few head rolls both ways. So do 2 to the left, and then 2 to the right. Then we're going to roll our shoulders back and then forward. Inhale, reach all the way up, and then we're going to stretch it over to the left side, bringing our right arm over our body, really stretching out that side body, but keeping our chest nice and tall still. Inhale back to center. Do the same thing on the other side. Keeping those shoulders down as we keep our chest high and breathing into that stretch in our side body. Inhale back up and then gently reach back into a little backward bend, looking up towards the sky, opening that chest, breathing into this moment as we start to let go of any doubts that we have about this transition into motherhood. Gently lean back up and then go ahead and meet me in a standing position. Take your time as we stand up. Bring your legs a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. As we inhale, reach up towards the sky nice and tall. And then exhale, reaching forward as we slowly dive forward into a forward fold all the way to the ground. We can gently rock back and forth here as we settle into this stretch. Bring it to the center, and you can even walk your hands back a little bit if that feels comfortable to you. Go ahead and bring it over into your left foot, and then we're going to slowly transition into a low lunge. So both palms are on the ground. You're in a low lunge, really leaning into that left hip. Still keeping that spine nice and long. And then we're going to inhale, bring it up into a high lunge. So bring both hands to your left knee. And then we'll bring our arms up by our ears. So biceps by your ears. And then on the next inhale, we're going to bring the arms back into cactus pose, leaning up towards the sky, arching our back just a little bit as we open that chest. Inhale back up into high lunge. And then exhale into warrior two. So you're just going to bring that back foot down. You're now facing the side of your mat. Extend those arms as far as you can. Then inhale and bring it back into reverse warrior. So your left arm is reaching over your side body. Your right arm is reaching down the back of your leg. And you're going to bring your gaze towards your back foot. Really breathing into that side stretch. Keeping your chest nice and tall. Inhale, bring it back to warrior two for just a second. Then we're going to straighten that left leg and then slowly pivot down into triangle pose. So we're keeping our chest nice and high. We're bringing our gaze and our navel towards the sky as we transition into this next pose. As we move from pose to pose, think about how we're doing this smoothly and having compassion with ourselves, just like the transition into motherhood. Then we're going to slowly bring it back up into warrior two, bringing our gaze towards our left arm, and then we're going to bring it back into a high lunge As we gain balance on that right foot, we're going to transition again into Warrior 3, bringing the same compassion and patience that we're going to bring into our transition into this new phase in our life. Doing the best we can to keep those biceps by our ears, lifting our back leg as high as we can, flexing that foot still. And then go ahead and bring it back down into high lunge. And then we'll transition into star pose, reaching those arms and that gaze towards the sky. And then we're going to exhale, bring it forward into a forward fold, slowly coming all the way down, reaching our hands towards the back of our mat once we get there to get a deeper stretch if that feels good to you. And you can also bring it into a little rock if you want to tuck your hands into your elbows and just gently rock back and forth. Then we're going to slowly transition it into our right side. Again, bringing our palms to the mat into a low lunge, keeping our spine nice and straight as we do this. Leaning into that lunge, and then inhale, bring it up into a high lunge so your hands are now coming to your right knee. Your chest is nice and high, your shoulders are up and back, and then we're going to bring our biceps by our ears. Then we're going to inhale, bring those arms back into cactus pose, leaning back ever so slightly, having compassion and trust into these transitions. Inhale back into high lunge, and then go ahead and transition into Warrior 2. So bring that back foot down, stretching those arms out as far as we can, gazing over your front arm, leaning and breathing into that hip stretch. Then we'll take it back into reverse warrior. So your right arm is reaching over your side body. Your back arm is going down the back of your leg. Go ahead and bring your gaze towards your back foot. Our chest is still nice and high, even though we are leaning into our side body. Then we're going to bring it back to Warrior 2 for just a second. And then we're going to straighten that front leg. And then go ahead and lean it into triangle pose on the other side. So again, keeping that chest nice and high, pivoting our gaze towards the sky as we keep those arms nice and straight. Consider how you can really trust your body and your internal guidance as you transition from these different poses. Then we're going to bring it back up again into Warrior 2 as we transition into our balancing pose of Warrior 3. So bring it back into a high lunge. Your hips are square towards the front of your mat. You're finding that balance on your right foot as we go ahead and pop it into Warrior 3 when we are ready, keeping our arms and biceps by our ears, lifting that back leg as far as we can, being compassionate with ourselves. If we can only lift it a little bit, keeping that foot flexed, and trying to aim towards a straight line with our leg in our hands and our back. But again, being compassionate with ourselves and meeting ourselves where we are in this transition and in this pose. Then go ahead and slowly bring it back into a high lunge. Then pivot towards the side of your mat into star pose. Go ahead and shake it out for a second if you need to as we head into our next and final power pose. Our feet are already pointing outwards. Our stance is a little bit wider than our hips. We're going to go ahead and squat it down and bring our arms up into cactus pose as we head into goddess pose. I cannot think of a pose that embodies motherhood better than goddess pose. So go ahead and try to lean down as far as you can. You can even sway back and forth if you need to in this pose. But while you are here, you are fully feeling into and embodying that goddess energy that comes with the transition into motherhood. The trust within yourself, the loving kindness within yourself. Feel into that energy. Then go ahead and inhale, reach it back up into star pose, bring your gaze and your arms towards the ceiling, and then slowly bring it towards the top of your mat. We're going to bring our legs together and then exhale, forward fold all the way down. Then inhale into halfway lift, keeping that spine nice and long and straight. Exhale back down, put those palms on the floor, transition into a quick plank, and then meet me in tabletop. We're going to take our hips a little bit wider and bring our palms to the front of our mat as we slowly lean it back into child's pose. So really stretching out your back and your arms and your hips as you're leaning it all the way back into child's pose. Take a few deep breaths as we ground ourselves in this moment and in this beautiful transition and time in our life. Slowly bring it back into tabletop and then transition onto your bottom on your mat and then onto our back. We're going to keep our feet flat and our feet by our hips. We're going to ground our arms into our mat, keeping them straight, and then slowly push our hips up towards the sky into bridge pose. Pushing those hips as far as we can as we open those hips, reaching them towards the sky. You can even bind your hands behind your back if that feels good to you. Slowly bringing your hips back down towards your mat, and then bring your knees towards your chest. You can bring them towards your chest a little bit wider to make room for your belly as we stretch out that lower back. Then go ahead and bring your feet back down towards your mat. Bring your left ankle over your right knee into a reclined figure 4. We're going to bring our hands behind our right knee as we pull that right knee towards our chest. And then you're also going to bring your left knee towards the front of your mat if you want to increase that sensation in your hip stretch. Then we'll go ahead and transition to the other side. So bring your right ankle to your left knee, bringing your hands behind your left knee, pulling that knee towards your chest as much as you can, and then also bringing that right knee towards the front of your mat to increase that stretch and that sensation. Keeping that left foot flexed as we breathe into the stretch. Then go ahead and bring it down, and we're going to go ahead and lean into our side body as we transition into Savasana. If you're in your second and third trimester, it's a good idea to lay on your side for Savasana, not on your back, as sometimes that can make you a little lightheaded. So do what feels best to you. Go ahead and bring your hand towards your belly as we start to take some nice, deep, full breaths. As we wrap up our practice today, really breathe into that loving kindness energy as you start to trust your internal guidance to guide you through this beautiful transition into motherhood. As you take on new identities, new roles, new responsibilities for your baby. Breathe into that trust and have compassion for yourself when you get frustrated or scared or unsure of what is next in this journey. When it feels right, gently lift yourself into a seated position as we bring a close to our practice. I am so grateful that you joined me today. Remember, you can always come back to this practice if you're feeling overwhelmed by the transition into motherhood. Bring your hands to your chest in prayer position. I'll see you in the next yoga flow. Namaste.
Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed today's yoga flow or meditation, please consider subscribing so you don't miss any future yoga flows or meditations. Or if you have any ideas for topics you want me to cover in the future, please leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video. I love every single one of you, and I'm so grateful that you joined me today. See you in the next video.